Hello and welcome to my July TBR slash reading plan slash whatever this is. I don't know. I kind of liked having a June TBR. I don't know why. I don't usually like TBRs. I'm very much a mood reader. I do what I want. I do what I feel like. Just like when the mood hits me, I pick up a book. But my June TBR felt kind of good. So I was like, let's do it again. Didn't have any more books I'd started and abandoned and couldn't think of anything interesting to do. So I just picked a random shelf using a number generator, and I'm gonna focus on those books in July. I don't plan to read all of them, that would be ridiculous. The shelf that the random number generator chose, I'd only read 2 books off of, so perhaps not the best shelf to use, but this is what we have. I picked one stack of books that I'm very interested in, that are probably going to be like more of what I'm focusing on, and then we have some alternatives, and I'll like show you the first stack and then briefly like hit on the alternatives. So this is the stack that I'm most interested in. I'll go through these, and then I have 2 more stacks of like the rest of the books from that shelf. The first thing, I have the Tomorrow series by John Marsden. This is 3 of the books. This is like 3, 5, and 6. There are 7. Obviously wouldn't be starting with these, but I feel like it still counts. I own the rest of them, and they're all unread except for the first book. The problem with these books and why I always put them off is because I don't like them. I read the first one, and I didn't like it. I think I gave it like 2 stars, and then I bought the 6 others. Like, I just like, it's the kind of thing, I don't like the books, I don't like his writing style, they have a lot of issues in them, which like, this is really not about that. But I was really curious about the overall plot, because they're YA dystopian, and basically this group of teenagers goes camping in Australia, and when they come back like 2 weeks later, they find that they've been invaded, like their country has been invaded, and this all happened while they were gone, and like their parents have been captured, and like I was really interested in like the overarching story, but I know I'm not really gonna enjoy them. But I did like genuinely want to read them to see where the overarching story went, so I maybe just have to force myself through these. I don't know. I have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, pretty copy too. This is a classic. Everyone seems to love this, and the way they describe it, kind of like, it's very thrillery. I don't want to read about it just because like half the time they're like, well, this is a classic, so we're just gonna tell you how it ends, and I'm like, I don't want that. But the way people talk about it, I feel like I would really enjoy it. But then I always just like, classics intimidate me because I always feel like I'm not gonna understand them because I think I'm stupid, and like, I don't know. I struggled with school a lot, so I do genuinely feel like I'll like this book. I maybe just have to like pressure myself into like really starting it and getting into it, and then maybe I'll just like fall in love is my plan anyway. Southland by Nina Revoyr. This is, I'm not really sure what this is. I never heard of this before. It's about a Japanese American woman in the 90s who, after her grandfather died, he owned like a convenience store or a little grocery store or something. It doesn't matter. He owned a little store, and in the riots, there were race riots, the Watts riots, in 1965. 4 black teenage boys were killed there, and like, no one really ever investigated their murders, and like, she kind of starts looking into it along with like one of the victims' brothers or something. I don't know, but it sounds really, really interesting. Like, have been intrigued in this since I heard about it, which was in a thrift store on the shelf, but it sounds good. Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Everyone on BookTube talked about this and loved this like 4 years ago. This was like the big thing on BookTube. Like before the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, it was this. And the way this was described, it sounded so good. Like, genuinely so good. But it never appealed to me. It just sounds like something I would like. Like, I think it's about a woman who has, like, anxiety, and, like, is socially inept kind of, and it's a little bit romancy and like her dealing with her life. It's contemporary and it just sounds like something I would love, but for whatever reason it's never appealed to me. Like I've never looked at this book and been like, yeah, that sounds amazing. I always look at it like, I don't know, but like it should be something I like. It sounds like something I like. So I think maybe it's just because it's so hyped, I've kind of been like, yeah, it's too popular for me, which is a stupid thing to say. Like, that makes zero sense. So I think this is one that I really do just have to like force myself to read and then maybe love it. We'll see. Best American Crime Writing, the 2004 edition. So kind of old. I grabbed this from a thrift store, obviously. I don't know if this is fiction or nonfiction. Like, I don't know if it's like crime fiction or like true crime stuff. Don't know. Like them both, so it doesn't really matter. But I've been kind of feeling more anthologies lately, or like short story collections, or like whatever, you know? Just, I read one, well, I didn't read one last month, but I read like some essays last month in a short story collection, and like it kind of put me in the mood for like some shorter things. So this I will definitely be starting in early July, I think. It just like, it's what's appealing to me right now. Then I have A Trail of Broken Wings by Sejal Badani. This is about a woman whose father falls into a coma, and then like 3 estranged sisters kind of come together, and like it kind of brings the family together again. They might go back to India. She's Indian American, I think. Yeah. She's a photographer. It reminded me a little bit of Kristen Hanna books, and I like Kristen Hanna in theory, not so much in practice all the time. So I was like, let's pick this up, because like Kristen Hanna story sounding, but not Kristen Hanna's writing. Maybe I love it. But it's just like a family story, which I always really enjoy. And then the final thing that's like things I'm really like into, The Good Girls, An Ordinary Killing by Sonia Faleiro. This is, I think, it's also set in India. Well, the other one's not set in India, it's just Indian American. This is set in India, and there are 2 girls in a village who are killed. Just like a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old who are like murdered. And it's more about like the village they live in and how their murder affects the village murders, rather than like about like investigating their killing, I think. But I've wanted to read this. Like this, I've almost picked up like 3 different times since I bought it. It's just like, there's always a reason for me not to. And there shouldn't be, because it sounds amazing. So that's the stack of books that I'm really into. Doesn't necessarily mean I'll read all of them, but those are probably going to be like a decent chunk of what I read this month. And then there were other books on the shelf, because I hadn't read like anything on the shelf basically. So I'm just going to show you those, kind of hit on them briefly, but not like talk about them, because like, to be honest, I'm probably not going to read them, so what's the point? Stack number 1 that I will be choosing from like discards. The Widow by Fiona Barton. I should hold these up in order. The Widow by Fiona Barton. I've got nonfiction book about Afghanistan. Erik Larson. Breath, Eyes, Memory by Edwidge Danticat. This might actually go on the list. It depends on how exhausted I feel, because I try to pick like a variety, and it's like I can't read too many like nonfiction / literary / like effort type books, and I need like some YAs, some thrillers, some whatever to throw in to like kind of balance it out. So that's kind of why this wasn't on my regular list, but I do want to read more Edwidge Danticat, because I read one of her memoirs, one of her nonfiction books, and I really, really liked it. This is a novel though. Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress by Sijie, which is a novel set in China during the Cultural Revolution. The Lost Girls of Paris, which I think is World War II. I'm just going to assume this is World War II. Yep, 1946. Post World War II? 1946. Oh, but it's about things that happened before then. So, World War II. The Anchor Book of New American Short Stories. If I didn't have the crime book on here, this is probably what I'd be picking up. But I was kind of feeling more crime than short stories, but I do want to read this soon because, like, it's just so many, like, big authors. I say as I flip through and don't recognize any of these names. Oh, Jumpalahiri. I recognize her. Kate Braverman, William Gay. I'm saying these names like they mean anything to me. This is the final stack. It's a shorter stack. A Monster Call by Patrick Ness. Another BookTube darling, but, like, I don't really have the energy to read that many, like, BookTube hyped books at once, because I do feel like most of the time I have negative opinions, which I'm fine with on books. I'm very picky. But it is just kind of disheartening to always be, like, the negative voice in the conversation. Like, I want to love things too. It's just that, like, the books that I love don't generally become BookTube darlings, which is probably more to do with how I choose my books than, like, the quality of them. Because I do feel like Liz Moore could be a BookTube darling. She just, like, hasn't broken through yet, but I feel like she will at some point. Unrelated. Women in Sunlight. I have no idea what this is. Canada by Richard Ford. This is about Canada, I assume. Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. I thought the K was an R. This is about the New York socialite who worked with concentration camp survivors. It's fiction, but it's, like, based on, like, true events. And then I have 3 Kevin Brooks books, which he writes YA, kind of like early 2000s, mid 2000s YA. He published through Push, which, yeah, you can see on the bottom of the books, they all say Push. I really loved Push when I was a teenager, just as, like, they were a small publishing company. They might have been an imprint of somebody, I don't know. They probably were, but I really did enjoy Push books. So when I saw them in a thrift store, I was kind of like, oh yes, I remember that. That reminds me of my teen years. So it's just YA contemporaries about kids who are having issues, mostly, like, variety of issues. Could be like trauma, could be like poverty, could be like they're dealing with juvie or whatever, you know. So just his books. Might pick up one of these just because, like, the contemporary YA reads pretty fast for me. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at for this month. I probably should have just picked a shelf that, like, had half the books, and then it would have felt more, like, focused. But this is what I did. This was what I chose to do. This is the stack that I will probably be reading most of. Let's hold them right. There we go. This is probably going to be my actual TBR. I assume I'll read, like, half of these and maybe a couple of the others, but this is what I plan to do for July. We'll see how this goes. I feel like this will not be as successful as my June TBR, but okay. I'm just gonna end the video now. It's been a long morning. Comment down below if you have any thoughts on this. If you have any ideas for how I could better choose my TBRs, because I don't think this is gonna work, but this is what I came up with. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.